What's up guys, Jefferson here, and in this video we're actually going to be installing the Yoke steering wheel into the car now. A few things before we get started. I want to go over a few tools that you will need during this installation and a few tools that I would highly recommend on having. So one, make sure you have a flathead screwdriver, something that's small enough to enter into the hole, but nothing too large. Next, you will need a torque screw, so a T25 torque screw. I do recommend having needle nose pliers, so this will make it extremely easy to remove the wiring harness from the wheel. However, they're not required. It just makes your job significantly easier. You will need a ratchet with a 10mm hex bolt, and you will also need an extension as well, because if you just have a regular ratchet, it will not be able to go in unless you have like a long 10mm hex bolt. But you will need this, plug it into the adapter, and then put this into your ratchet, and then you'll be fine. This tool is highly recommended. Again, you're working in your car, you don't want it to come off while you're driving. This is a torque wrench, so we're able to just torque it down to the proper specs just to be safe. And I'll put everything in the description as well. But with that being said, let's actually just head to the car. Let's remove the old steering wheel. Disclaimer, I've actually done this a few times just to make sure I'm actually doing it properly. A few things to kind of know. It's extremely difficult to remove the airbag. I had the longest time, roughly around probably like 30 minutes to an hour. I had a very difficult time trying to remove that. Just relax, take your time with it. It will happen. As I'm removing this one, I'll also show you like a few tips and tricks. But in all essence, when it comes down to it, it's going to be quite difficult. But let's head over to the car and get started. Make sure you go in your car, hit power off, turns off all the electronics, and then locate the small holes on the bottom of the wheel, and then put your flathead screwdriver in, and then you're going to try to locate like the tension pin on there. It's going to be difficult to try to locate, but try to find it. There we go. Oh my goodness. So that is the most difficult out of the whole installation. So what I did was, as I applied pressure, I was pushing this down slightly and pushing it upward. And then from there, you're able to pull this out. So don't pull it out all the way, just because you will see a wire right there. And what you would want to do is actually grab your needle nose pliers and then go inside here and pull it out. So I'll show you a better view. You want to put your needle nose pliers just above that. So open them up, put it into that position, and then slowly pull it out. Okay, and then just put your airbag aside for now. And then next, what you would want to do is also pull out this wiring harness, and that one's actually what's controlling your scroll wheels. And then pull that out as well. Perfect. And once that's out, what you would want to do now is actually grab your 10mm bolt and then try your best to untangle that. So mine's not tight as much, just because for the purpose of this video. But once you get that in, this one might be a little tough, but once you put that in, you'd want to use your legs to hold it down, and then you'd want to untighten it. Once that's untightened, you could just undo the rest by hand. So put that aside, and then right here, what I do is actually kind of like wiggle it back and forth, pulling it out so you could remove the whole head. You would want to inch it side to side, and then the whole thing pulls out. So let's go back into the house and transplant everything over from this wheel to the new wheel. All right, so we have the wheel right in front of us, and what I would actually recommend starting off is turn it around. Okay, and then you'll see this side right here. grab your T25 screw and use that to actually push into these tabs. So that way it loosens up. So we got one. Grab the other one, push it through. And then we got one more. Push that through as well. Perfect. And the reason why we want to do that is this allows us to lift this whole bracket up and then gain access to 4 of the T25 screws. So we have one here, 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 and there. And start unscrewing. Perfect. So that's one. That is 2. That's 3, and then the last one is on the top. Perfect. 4. And then what I would recommend in this part is actually use your hands right here and then just push up onto the tabs. Perfect. And then also do that to the bottom as well. Perfect. Yours might require a little bit more force depending on how often it's been removed. And then from the bottom, same thing. And then from here, I like to just shimmy side to side, side to side. So that way, as you're working it up, careful right here because these tend to kind of like get caught from the leather. We're just going to remove this whole piece. Perfect. And then from there, we're able to remove that whole section. Grab any screws that we have. All right, so when you poke through the hole, this is how it will look like right there. And what you're trying to do is actually use this to push onto that tension screw to loosen up the airbag connection. So you're pushing against that to try to loosen it up, and it's extremely difficult. So you'd want to take your time. You could see that there's a lot of scratch marks, but you would want to just take your time, and it's recommended to have a flathead. I just grabbed a screwdriver, but pushing against it with a screwdriver is more difficult than the flathead, and you want to push, and that's ultimately what you're doing. And then the angle you would want to go at is just the same direction as the hole allows you to, and just push on forward. Before we actually put this aside, you'd want to grab your tension. This is the airbag tensioner, and then just push up against it to remove it, because we will be using this and putting it onto the new wheel. Grab your yoke steering wheel, and unfortunately with this one, I do not have the proper screws to remove this, so I will actually be using my OEM harnesses and then putting it onto there. So what we'll be doing is right here, when you look right here, this uses a T10 screw, but unfortunately these ones are significantly smaller. They might be a T6. They are Torx screws. T6 or T8, I have no idea, but unfortunately the smallest I have is a T10, which are these, but you need to remove everything from there. So I will be reusing my OEM one. So let's put that aside and then grab our yoke steering wheel. And just like what we did with our old one, we're going to remove this. Okay. Just put that outside. Okay, perfect. And this whole thing will eventually just come off just like the old one. This portion right here is for the heated steering wheel. Mine is actually not heated, but this is nice to just future-proof yourself. So grab this and just place it in gently. Just make sure it lines up. Slowly work your way in and push down on the tabs. Perfect. Okay, excellent. So everything is pushed down. So before you insert the tabs, you want to make sure you actually install the screw heads. So let's install these screws back. And when you're installing these screws, you want to be very careful because unfortunately with mine, they're all stripped and broken. So just be very careful when installing these to not tighten too much, because you are using metal screws to tighten into a plastic tab. Okay, last screw. Excellent. So since all the screws are now reinstalled, push these tabs back in. Make sure you hear a clicking noise. Okay, turn it around. Make sure each tab are all properly seated. These ones look good. Seems like the edge needs to be pushed in a little bit more. So this edge right here. There we go. So that's now properly seated. Now you want to go right here and just push that in. Excellent. Now that. And then all I'm doing is just pushing down on the whole thing right here. And then now we just need the middle. Middle might be actually installed all the way in. Okay, perfect. I nearly forgot. You want to make sure you install the tensioner and make sure you do that first. But in this case, I already have that installed, so I'm just going to hopefully just position it in. It's a lot easier without anything there. Okay. Perfect. Because if you do not reinstall that tensioner, you will not be able to lock in your airbags. Okay, there we go. Now let's go back to the car. All right, so the process is going to be exactly the same, so just backwards. However, before we install this, I strongly recommend making sure that this is as straight as possible, because if it's slightly off right there, that will mess up your alignment. So try your best to make sure that this is straight. And then once you have it lined up, then wiggle it side to side inward. Once you feel like that's properly seated, now you want to reinstall your harness. Okay. Grab your bolt, and then you want to hand tighten that in. That way it prevents any cross threading. Okay. We're just going to tighten it a little bit more by hand. Okay. Okay. And then grab your torque wrench. So you want to tighten it down to 80 Newton meters, or that's roughly 59 foot-pounds. And then torque it down. Okay, perfect. Because my car does not have heated steering wheel, I'm just going to tuck this aside. Grab your airbag, reinsert that in. Excellent. Make sure both harnesses are completely settled in. and plugged. And then just push down in your airbag. And we are good to go. Turn your car on. And then the first thing you would want to make sure you do is make sure the horn works. Perfect. We got a good installation. Wheel rotates. All right, guys, that's all that we have for the installation. Make sure a few tips. The tensioner is going to be one of the most difficult throughout the whole installation. Just take your time with it, relax, use a flathead screwdriver, turn it sideways where you are not able to see the head of it. So you're just seeing the edge, push it in, and just take your time. What I do is actually go back and forth and switching the side depending on how frustrated I get. So just relax, take your time. Next might be the bolts. So the bolt will probably be the second hardest depending on how hard it's tightened. And again, I highly recommend getting a torque wrench to make sure you properly torque it down as best as possible. With all that being said, that is all. I absolutely love this Yoke steering wheel, and I'll be making my full review shortly. If you see it up, that means the video is up and ready to be viewed. Thank you for watching, guys, and have a beautiful day.